On March 8, 1983, American President Ronald Reagan named the Soviet Union the Evil Empire.
They are the focus of evil in the modern world.
He said that the Soviets must be made to understand how we'll never compromise our principles and standards, nor ignore the facts of history and the aggressive impulses of an evil empire. The Union of Soviet Socialist Republics crumbled under the weight of maintaining its vast military machine and a flailing economy. Now there's a new empire on Earth. Its name is the People's Republic of China, the Communist Party of China. In little more than 3 decades, China has transformed itself from a closed-off Asian nation mired in poverty to an emerging superpower that rivals the Western world. Now, the tendrils of Chinese influence are gradually wrapping themselves around the world, upending roles and relationships that have dominated the global order for half a century. The latest step in China's evolution as a global power is President Xi Jinping's grand plan for the world economy that draws on the millennia-old tradition of the Silk Road trading route. China is changing communities and lives across the globe, with its financial clout and its influence on culture, education, travel, and the military balance of power. Over the last 2 decades, the Russian and Chinese approach has been to stay relatively hands-off when it comes to each other's direct problems with the West. Both sides are pragmatic and self-interested enough for this to remain the case, but the overall context has clearly changed. As it becomes more obvious how irreversible the downturns in relationships with the United States and European has become, the China-Russia partnership has gone commensurately deeper, marked less by the hedging strategies and a purely rhetorical alignment, and more by concrete, substance-based consultation and coordination. A key dimension driving the deepened China-Russia partnership are also Xi and Putin themselves. This is not only in reference to their interpersonal relationship, but the very fact of their personalistic authoritarian rule, which has clearly become a matter of unsolvable structural antagonism with Western countries. Russia and China's rivalries with the West are bringing the two countries closer together than ever. Putin's visit to China is primarily about shaping a new world order where Russian and Chinese core interests, whether it be security concerns or territorial aspirations, are respected and can be redefined through mutual support and increasingly coordinated actions in response to the West. To strengthen their bargaining power and challenge the primacy of the United States, Europe, and Japan, the two countries are focused on the issues that they believe have been used against them in the current world order to curb and weaken them. For China, this is seen in assertive and ultra-nationalistic policies in Xinjiang, Hong Kong, the South China Sea, and the Taiwan Strait. For Russia, this is about NATO and the orientation of former Soviet countries, with Ukraine being the most notable example. As they prepare for these challenges, Russia and China are minimizing any conflicting positions between them in regions with overlapping investments, interests, and influences, such as in Central Asia and the South China Sea. The main purpose of the West's original policy of engagement with China was to avoid this very situation. By integrating Beijing into the US-led system, the thinking went, the Chinese leadership would see its benefits and come to support it. On a certain level, the plan succeeded. China has been a major beneficiary of the American order, perhaps the biggest of all. The security, trade, and cross-border investment fostered by the US order propelled China's rise from poverty, while Beijing eagerly immersed itself in US-backed institutions such as the World Trade Organization. Yet today, China's paramount leader, Xi Jinping, appears to consider the US system a constraint on Chinese power. For a proud autocracy, the American order can seem an unfriendly, even threatening place, one where liberal political values reign supreme and the Chinese form of government is perceived as illegitimate, while Chinese companies and officials are vulnerable to foreign sanction and Chinese ambitions are hemmed in. From Xi's perspective, it's critical that Beijing rewrite the rules to better suit its interests, and more broadly, those of authoritarian states. Simply, Xi intends to flip the global hierarchy, placing illiberal governments and ideals at its apex. What becomes clear from an examination of China's history is that the Chinese don't just want to be a great power, they believe they deserve to be. In centuries past, the Chinese thought their sovereign had a right to rule all under heaven. Due to the realities of technology and distance, China's reach usually remained regional. But now, in the age of globalization, Beijing's influence may achieve that lofty goal. Both China and Russia share the same goal of doing away with America's primacy in the global order. Until this grand objective is achieved, there are no reasons to worry about the health of Beijing and Moscow's relationship. Looking ahead, the questions are, what happens once China, with some Russian help, succeeds in dethroning the West? If China becomes the world's strongest superpower, how would it treat Russia? Russia's economy is already 1/10 of that of China, and the gap continues to widen. Even more worrying than the GDP gap, Russia is getting increasingly behind China in many vital scientific and technological sectors. For example, Russia used to pride itself on its leadership in space, but now Moscow may become a junior partner in a Chinese-led project to set up a lunar base. If China, as it emerges as a new superpower, acquires imperial hubris and a sense of entitlement akin to the West, then the China-Russia relationship might eventually get into trouble. For now, the common goal to push back against the United States and Europe has kept a firm lid on the relationship, but underneath, frictions are brewing. Putin and Xi are eager to showcase their warm ties and how their countries are growing closer, with Russia's president even toasting the Chinese leader on his birthday while wearing matching outfits. Moscow's action in Ukraine may be seen by Beijing as a useful distraction, but at the same time, the Kremlin's actions must unnerve China, since Putin's moves could disrupt the Belt and Road Initiative. An estimated 85% of Chinese rail traffic to Europe transits through Belarus, which could be squeezed by renewed hostilities in the region. Ukraine, meanwhile, was once envisioned as one of the anchors of the Belt and Road Initiative, and Beijing still has sights on the country, with China being its largest trading partner. China knows it needs to work with Russia, but that doesn't mean that Beijing has forgotten about the long-term frictions that lay ahead in its relationship with Moscow. Putin would be smart to also keep an eye on these future tensions, regardless of the red carpet welcome he's currently receiving in China.